Welcome back to the Blissful Badger. For the month of Orktober, I chose to build and paint 1,000 points of Orks. It consisted of 13 units and a total of 72 models needing attention to become a usable force. I had collected Orks for several years, but had only painted 7 over that time. Looking at my collection, I knew it was time to finally give the Orks the love they deserved, and chose Orktober to motivate me through the process. Prior to this month, I had never attempted a painting challenge quite so large. I think the most I've ever painted in a single month was during the Blood Angels Escalation League earlier this year, and that was only 30 troops with a minimal color palette, plus they were already fully assembled. I've taken on other forms of challenges before to explore deadlines, and felt that it was a good opportunity to push myself further in the painting hobby. The first step was to build a functioning list with the models that I owned. This took a moment as I had a few partial kits and random models, and a few holes in a properly built list. Namely, I had no trucks. I figured the best way to solve this problem was with an orky manipulation of spare parts and sprue, right up the mech boys' sense of creativity. Sure, they don't have wheels or tracks yet, but the overall design works well for the aesthetic I'm going for. I knew I needed to build most of the models within this army, but I was fairly confident that wouldn't take very long. After 4 days, I still had the flash kits and trucks to build, and I was already nearing a week into the project. I realized that the task at hand was a bit larger than I had originally thought, but I was going to push through and try to get everything painted anyway. I also didn't plan the color scheme as well as I could have. I have a certain standard for painting, and I didn't want to reduce the models to only 3 or 4 colors, when there were many details I wanted to focus on. My 2nd edition boys have a neat armor pattern. The knobs have lots of armor panels. And the flash kits are, well, flashy. Each of these took more time to paint than a quick airbrush and details could have provided, say, on a basic Space Marine. I had a lot of fun painting some older orc sculpts, and even a few 3D printed models. I batch painted each unit separately, and varied the skin tones and a few details to make sure they were adequately differentiated. By the end, though, I was getting sick of painting brown pants. Of all of the color scheme, it was the least fun part. Towards the end of the month, I decided to make it even harder for myself, and added the Octarius terrain to my goal. Yes, I should have waited to finish everything else before adding the stretch goal, but that part of my plan was more brutal than cunning. A day of scraping and gluing later, I was able to prime the terrain and use up 2 cans of spray paint. Over the course of a few days, I added detail colors and eventually took them out to add a thin acrylic wash. I also took out the trucks for the same shower. It produced a subtle effect, but it ties the colors back towards a consistent look. When it came to basing, I knew I wanted to try something new. Bases make armies cohesive on the tabletop, and I've been exploring the different methods available. For the Skaven, I've used milliput and rollers, so for the Orks, I went with Waaagh earth texture. It's a little messy, but I like the way it looks once dry. I chose a light desert sand, so I don't think a dry brush would do much good. I may try a wash on a test model at some point, but for now it looks good enough. And I also added tufts. Everyone got the mandatory 1 tuft, and the war boss and runt herds were given a 2nd. I still have half of my orc collection on sprue, but that will be a project for another time. They will eventually see the table when Snickrot chooses the most cunning time to sneak out of the shadows. If you enjoyed my Orktober progress, please like and subscribe and leave a comment. I'm nearly at 100 subscribers, and I really want to break that goal before the end of the year. Overall, I am thrilled with my results. I learned quite a bit about my painting skills and how far I can push to get an army on the table. I loved learning how to use spruey stuff and earth textures. I'm going to take a few days off from painting to reset, but I'll be back on Sunday for the next live stream. And in the meantime, I'm going to take on National Novel Writing Month. I'm going to attempt to write 50,000 words in the month of November. From the frying pan right into the fire. Wish me luck, and until the next time, I hope you find your bit of bliss.